Hello, Internet. Thanks for tuning in to my tarot channel. I have an interesting reading for you, and sorry, I'm getting closer. It is different. I'm still gonna finish that series where I do all the elements, but first I am gonna sprinkle in I'm just gonna do what I want, basically. So, this is a reading for anyone who needs support right now, and I am in the Whole Foods parking lot. And if you want to know, I had gluten-free baguette microwaved with specifically the Za'atar Lebanese hummus. And it was really good, but now I need some greens because it was really salty, so I'm gonna get there. But listen, I have a message for you. I'm gonna have some water first. I probably lost all my viewers just now, but anyway, my message for you is about someone this is a no card reading based on my impressions and feelings and whatever I want. So this is about someone who's leaving a situation or left a situation, or there was a situation that you ended that you felt mixed feelings about leaving. So the first image that I'm seeing is a turkey, and a turkey. I'm letting the reading be guided by my spirit guides, your spirit guides, and my higher self, and God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Mary. So just to let you know, that's what is coming through. So you had to leave this situation, and the turkey, it could have been around Thanksgiving, or it could have been in November in general, or also it could have been something that you were really grateful to leave. I mean, it brought you gratitude, but maybe at the moment it didn't feel that grateful. Oh, sorry, it's just me banging my knee on the car. So you left this situation, and I'm seeing that just bear with me. I'm seeing that you are a star seed. Yes, I am that out there. A star seed is someone who, as I understand it, the sort of origination of their soul and the incarnations of their soul have gone through incarnations on other planets and experienced life on other planets, which not everyone has experienced. So maybe that's really out there, but just stick with me. There's something about you that's very different, and so that has created a situation in a lot of groups I'm seeing where you were cast out, you felt cast out, but also it was sometimes you voluntarily leaving for your own peace of mind or dignity. And I'm seeing this has to do with some ancestral trauma, some old wounds. Not only the starseed thing of like you're literally on a different planet than you're used to in the other incarnations. That's one aspect, that you just may have like a really different nature, like your nervous system or your like thought process, or like just your outlook. Like maybe there's some Aquarius in your chart, or some maybe the number 4s in your, which relates to Uranus, is in your numerology somewhere strongly, or the 11th house. But yeah, or just you could have aspects that relate to Neptune in different ways in your chart. And I'm seeing that those qualities are really coming out right now. And I'm going to get back to the ancestral trauma in 1 second, but you have always felt different, and I'm seeing that you dressed differently growing up, and maybe were bullied or teased, but you also, that was like a slight early adversity that caused you to be like, you know what, I am going to be different. I'm going to be whoever I want. I'm a nonconformist. I'm sensing that word strongly. I'm seeing that there's someone in your life, a romantic partner that you feel, it's not ambivalence, but it's like sort of on and off, like you really want to make it work, but then sometimes it's like really not working and it's very negative for both people. It's just something to be aware of. And that person also comes from a place or a situation where they felt they had to escape, or whether literally or metaphorically or figuratively, you both felt like outcasts. And now you feel like you're outcast from this relationship. But also, so the ancestral stuff, you may have had, first of all, past lives, not only that you're a starseed, but you may have had past lives that involved being discriminated against, or, you know, witch trials even. I'm seeing like maybe even just involvement in the witch trials in any way, that karma can really stay with you. The thing is, if you are different, it doesn't matter where you live. If you live in a city, if you live in a small town, if you live in suburbia, you're going to affect the environment. And so that may bring shame, because usually when we're socialized as children, we're taught to conform for survival, because we need to be within the group for survival. And so your past lives may have had to do with some of this. So this is some karmic stuff that's being cleared. But also, I'm seeing that your family members, maybe they're immigrants that were left for like religious persecution, or maybe they left for even family persecution or financial fear. Maybe there was, you know, there were other reasons that these people left, your relatives, and that imprint is like on you, in you. I'm seeing a lot of like plants and plant matter, like maybe you're someone who needs, specifically the jungle, not just like nature. Maybe like spending time in a tropical place could be healing for you. I don't know where even just Florida can be an amazingly tropical place, you know. There's wild lizards everywhere. I lived in Florida for a little bit as a kid. It's very different on one of the keys there. And also the Florida sunshine. You need to get out there and get some sun. But I'm sensing that you're maybe very alone right now. I'm also sensing I was thinking of the rune Berkana, which I think that means fertility. I could be wrong, or at least good fortune. I think that there's been a lot of, I love runes, and I am part German, so I have an interest in that as well. The rune Berkana can also, I believe, be about like fertility, and I think that maybe you're someone who felt like they haven't gotten started quite yet in life. Like there's a lot of things you want to do, but you don't quite have the resources or the either financial or whatever to do them. And your ancestors are pushing you, your guides are pushing you to get some of these projects done, to prove to yourself that you can create your reality. So it's almost like the creative projects. Once you prove you can do that to yourself, you will create bigger goals in your life and show yourself you can do that too. But yeah, I'm like thinking of I'm a musician, and so sometimes when I do readings, I hear music and I know that it relates to the reading. So have you ever seen that movie, Mr. Holland's Opus? And there's the girl who he has a crush on named Rowena, and he writes the song for her, and it's sort of like a fantasy, but then in the end, he helps her go to New York, but then she's like, I thought you were gonna run away with me, because she could tell that he liked her, and he's like, well, I can't, you know, like, this is the reality, like, I have a wife and kids that I deeply love and care about, and one of my sons specifically is disabled. He doesn't say all that, but he's like, I can't go with you. And he doesn't say, like, I'm not attracted to you or whatever, but I forget, I think the name Rowena is related to the Irish tree of the rowan, and each Celtic tree relates to something specific. I'm not sure what. I think the rowan just means strength. Like, it's a very strong, like the bark is very strong. I'm going to sing the song in a second, but I think that you are a really strong person. I'm sorry, this reading's a little disjointed, and the Frank Sinatra version of this song that was sang in the Mr. Holland's Opus is very beautiful. It's like, there's a saying goes, say that love is blind, still it's often told, seek and ye shall find. There's a certain that I'm wanting to. Sorry, and then it goes on, it goes, I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. Oh, how I could find someone who would, someone to watch over me. It's a Gershwin song. Sorry, I got the lyrics wrong, but I feel that you're at a time where you feel very like innocent and like lost in your life, like that lamb, and you're looking for someone to watch over you. And I think that the truth of this is that will come, but the greater lesson is slowing down to love yourself. You know, in that story, Rowena goes to New York because she's so talented. The bubble, the microcosm of her school, she doesn't think she can afford college or really want to go, and she wants to make it in New York as a singer, or at least try. And he believes in her, the teacher, and her family, I think, is very effed up too. And so she is in a way cast out of her home because of her unique difference. And I'm gonna cry. I feel like I want to cry, but I think that you cried when you felt this way with this group of people, or with this, maybe it was a job, or like a family, maybe extended family, immediate family, or friends, any sort of like outcast situation where you felt outcast. There's also the truth that like what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something about, I just had like 12 different thoughts, sorry. I was gonna say something about direction, and I heard some quote from Joseph Campbell, and I'll try to put it below. But it was really good, and it really capitulated what I was thinking about. But Joseph Campbell believed, you know, his work was about mythology and myths, and ultimately I think he was someone who believed that feelings are transitory and that human experience is transitory, and these myths encapsulate what we go through. And I'm not sure why this is all coming up. Sorry, I'm trying to I think there's some deep part of you, the watcher, that feels outcast. And I was at a place, I was hiking into Mianus River Manus Maze Trail in Stanford this week, which is named after Chief Mayano, who was a Siwanoi leader. I forget the actual name that they called their chiefs, but he was a somewhat peaceful dude, but they were like forced out, his people of that river, after being inhabiting it for probably thousands of years, those peoples. But they were forced out during the 1600s by the Dutch with physical threats and, you know, tricks of like land, money, ownership, whatever trickery and threats of violence, and also just they started making people sick with their presence, with literally the diseases brought over from Europe, and also just taking over their waters. So stick with me here. This is going to be a little history lesson. Probably no one's going to watch this, so it's fine. But those people were pushed out of their home. One interesting thing about the Siwanoi, which means people of the salt, like the salt people, is that they would paint their entire bodies and or their faces different colors for ceremonial practice. You know, for anything that changed, like a birth, a death, a wedding, anything that was like life-changing, and I think that is important because it denotes that like when things change, we're not only changing mentally or where we are, like we're changing our DNA, and like the microorganisms, the microcellular data of our bodies is changing with that change. You know, like quantum energetic change that happens. So I thought they did a good job of showing that. But then here's a deeper part. That dude, Mayano, was nice, but there was a not so nice dude, another chief. I keep blocking out his name because it's triggering, but it started with an M and he was more in the Bronx area, Westchester, and he was sort of definitely an evil dude, but I mean, he had his reasons because he wanted these people to stop taking his land and killing his people. And so he threatened this Dutch settlement that if anyone doesn't leave, you're going to be massacred. And one woman stayed. Her name was Anne Hutchinson. She was actually, this is like a double what we're talking about. She was cast out of Boston because she was holding private prayer meetings for women, and men could come too, but there were like 80 people at a time, and even the governor came to one of them. But it was basically like she was running her own church, which for a woman was like incredibly against the rules. And she was also said that you could have an interpersonal relationship with God, and that she had seen visions, and they cast her out. So anyway, she decided to stay though when the warning came that God would protect her. And then they massacred her and her family. The only survivor was her 9-year-old daughter, Susanna, who was hiding in the nearby Split Rock Boulder in Westchester, which is on the highway overpass there. I think is it on 285? It's in Westchester. Anyway, so she was hiding there, and they found her, and then they made her like a Indian bride for several years until she got traded back. I think she was with them for like 9 years, which is pretty awful, but she eventually got traded back. They believe she was saved for her red hair. But then, so that's pretty awful. But then also, in like 8 months later, so that was in August, and then in like February, what is that, 7 months later, they did like an attack on Pound Ridge and on Greenwich, where they killed about 1,200 people, forcing them into their huts, native peoples, forcing them, the Dutch did this, forcing them into their huts and burning them alive. But back to the guy that killed Anne Hutchinson. Weirdly, he took her name because that was a tribal thing. If you kill someone like of note, you take their name, so he became Anio. Anyway, I just think it's a fascinating but tragic story of like how many things of like people not taking warnings, people feeling like they're defiant, but then also like what that warfare is. I just don't think violence is the answer. Warfare is not the answer. What's happening in Gaza is horrific, and it can be said too that what happened in Israel was atrocious and terrifying and a horrible attack. And people are also dying in Gaza, and it's terrifying and atrocious. So no one wins when this is how problems are dealt with in this world. It's also similar because it's about land, you know, it's about stolen land versus like who really owns land in the first place. But with the Native Americans, it's a really tragic story. But the Mianas River, the Miano name meaning of that chief was sachem, was what they called their leaders, sachems. But the Miano means gatherer of all things. So I want to leave you with, I told you that history lesson about people, so Anne Hutchinson was expelled from, or expunged from Boston for her religious beliefs, and then the natives were expunged from their homes for multiple reasons: threats, violence, sickness, trickery. And then I believe the Dutch were also actually originally pilgrims for religious reasons. But so that's why all these people are a vibrational match. But the gatherer of all things, I think that that name meaning could be useful for you as you heal from this generational intergenerational trauma stuff. You might want to look up Bruce Lipton, who talks about epigenetic healing, which means that like our brains are like basically malleable and can change and morph and you know, be healed from trauma, specifically intergenerational trauma. I'm also getting a message about oxidative stress. Like, I think your lifestyle is causing oxidative stress in your brain. You might want to look up what that is. That can cause a lot of issues as time goes on. But basically it's chronic stress that can present originally as acidity in the body and foggy thinking. And then a variety of other things can happen, but such as autoimmunity or just inflammation in the body. You might want to check your diet. Like, I told you I was eating too much salt, and I'm going to try to eat greens, but you might be like, I'm going to get back to the gatherer of all things thing before I end, but you might be someone who like needs to rethink how you're doing everything and like lower the cortisol stress like a lot, because with that DNA of having to leave or flee comes a lot of stress hormones that probably kept your ancestors and your people in your past lives that you were alive. But it's time to rest now and relax, and someone that's going to watch over you is God and yourself, like that Gershwin song. And you don't have to run away. Wherever you are, you can find a sacred space within yourself. Like the gatherer of all things can relate to someone who brings a community together, like Sachem Mayano, or it could also be in another way he gathered he gathered the good and bad of the community for them. So he gathered the physical things by like leading the tribe. Where are we gonna get food? What are we gonna do? And then when the Dutch came and took over, he gathered all things still. He gathered the pain of the people. He led them out of that land. As they were pushed out, he, actually was and then later killed in battle trying to defend his people. So he didn't just gather the bad things, he gathered the good things. He gathered all the things. He didn't just gather the medium, okay, mild things. He gathered the joy and the pain and the boring times and the good times and the bad times. And, you know, that is what a true leader does. Yeah. And that's why I told you that story, so that you could learn that you can be the true leader here in your own life. And I was thinking about bats today and researching about bats. Oh, here was I think that this was the Joseph Campbell quote, was about the inner cave, of man's inner cave that teaches us about ourselves, relating it to bats. But I'll try to find the quote and put it below. But like, when we go into a cave, you know, this really relates to Plato's cave. If you've ever heard of that story, it's in one of Plato's orations about like a man chained to a wall in a cave, and all he can perceive are these shadows on the wall, these like perceptions or distortions of what's actually happening. And that's what happens when we're chained to our not only place, like literal physical place, but our beliefs and our mindset and our fears and our ego. I used to work in a bar and I called it Plato's Cave. My coworkers didn't understand because they hadn't read Plato, but like the cave can be seen with the bat as a place of like regeneration and like renewal, and like going within darkness to find things that are unseen, to use the other senses. But then with that other meaning, there's a little bit more there. I'm also thinking of the caves at Lascaux, and sorry, I love art history. Those cave paintings that were found, I believe, was it 1400s? Or maybe the 14th century. Anyway, it was of these boys went, no, it was I think that it was way earlier than that they were made, but I think that it was found actually way later than I'm thinking. I'm sorry, these boys found it when they were hiking, and it is just amazing cave paintings. And just that idea of interiority, of someone in a cave, like some caveman who literally cannot like speak or think in the ways that contemporary man would find adequate, but they have the internal sense of the feeling of the buffalo, of the feeling of the deer. Yeah, so I'm sorry, that was kind of a lot, but I hope that this reading was helpful for you, and I hope that I'm also hearing flying like a bat out of hell. Like, I want you to know that you weren't fleeing. What you did was something to survive, and now you can relax on your nervous system, because that's not going to happen again. You're going to now change the environment around you so that you can thrive. You maybe have Scorpio in your chart, because Scorpios are said to they're said to pick out the toxicity and then change. This is also with empaths. They say either, you know, they become sick from this toxicity and pinpoint it, or the threat in the environment, either change the environment or they're pushed out of the environment. So you can't beat yourself up for that, but I'm seeing you come into a different power where you're changing the environment. And yeah, I feel like there's one last message, I just can't get to it. I don't know if you ever heard of Edward Casey. You might want to listen to some of his readings. He was a psychic and had a lot of interesting ideas. And for some reason I'm feeling guided to tell you that. And yeah, that's the end of the reading. Sorry it was so rambling, but I'm with you, and I feel your pain, and I know that you've been through a lot, energetically, vibrationally, emotionally. Sorry, I'm looking for my charger. And this is going to be healed just because that's the nature of life. If we allow, healing comes for us. And yeah,